guys, it's Hazel here at The Right Copy Girl, and this week I am sharing with you a topic that I absolutely love, and it is my 8 rules for an awesome life as a female entrepreneur. So rule number 1, and you will find me saying this in a lot of different videos for a lot of different topics, and this is why it is my rule number 1, be true to you. Now, I've used this quote before, but I'm going to say it again. My favourite quote is from Dr. Seuss, and it goes, "Today you are you, that is truer than true. There is no one alive who is youer than you." And when it comes to business and being an entrepreneur, that is such an important thing to remember. The most successful entrepreneurs are the people who threw themselves into their work wholeheartedly as their own true, usually slightly demented selves, and were consistently true to themselves and their vision of what they wanted to do, and it pays off. People get behind authenticity, okay? They get behind someone that they can sense is being authentic, being genuine, being true to themselves. They can relate to people better when they believe that they are relating to a real person, and you will find that they like you a lot more and a lot more easily if you are just being yourself. Now, that doesn't mean everybody will like you. I've done a whole video on that, and not everybody will like you, and that is a good thing. The thing you really have to remember here is that you started your business. You do things your way. That is your vision, and there is literally nobody else alive who could have thought to do things the way you're doing them, who could have built the business that you are building. And that's so, so important, because it's that unique quality, it's that total bespoke approach to the world that is going to build you a tribe, build you a business, and make you successful. So this is rule number 1, and it is unbreakable. Unbreakable. Be true to you. Rule number 2 is related to rule number 1, although most of them really are, to be honest, but this one really, really is. And that is, don't allow yourself to be limited by the limited imagination of others. Now, to explain that a little bit more, what I mean is, you will quite often have a vision of what you want to do, an idea of where you're going with your business, of services that you want to provide, of products that you want to create, you will just have a dream, and you will be absolutely adamant that you can do it, and that will be your obsession, and you will be following it and chasing it, and then somebody will say to you, "That'll never work. Nobody's gonna want that. Why would you even bother? It's not even a thing. That's like, what are you, a con man? Are you conning people? Is that real? You can have an online business, you can have a blog. What's a blog? A blog's not a business. That's just you talking to yourself. That's just narcissism. That's what a blog is. A blog is narcissism. You're just a narcissist. This is not an issue with you. You are running into trouble there because other people have limited imaginations. They don't have your vision. They can't see things the way that you're seeing them. They can't envision the world the way you're envisioning it. And that's a failure on their part, not on your part. And the fact that other people can't get behind it and can't believe in what you're seeing is not really their fault either, okay? It's just the fact that they don't see it for whatever reason. It might be because their areas of interest are elsewhere, it might be because their expertise is elsewhere, it might be because they have no frame of reference to understand what you're doing, but for whatever reason they're just not getting it. And that's because their imaginations are limited, but that should not limit you. So don't ever curtail your vision, don't ever curtail your dream, don't ever stop and say, oh God, you know, maybe I shouldn't go down that road, maybe I shouldn't do that, or maybe I shouldn't do that way because they don't get it, or they don't see it, or, you know, such and such says it's not going to work. Rule number 3 again follows on from that, and that is you need to stop seeking permission and looking for validation from other people. Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't surround yourself with people who are totally on board with what you're doing and they're at the same place that you are in life, and they can encourage you, because you absolutely should. What that means is that you need to stop looking for that support, that kind of support, in people who aren't able to give it you. So one really good example of this, my mother. God love her, I adore her. She's incredibly supportive of me, she's incredibly supportive of my business, but a lot of the time I try and explain to her what I'm doing and she gets confused. Not because I'm talking nonsense, but because she has no frame of reference. She's not got a background in business, she doesn't understand marketing, she's got no idea what content marketing is. So to give you a good example of this, the other day I was really excited because I just signed a new client, and I was telling her all about my new client and what I was going to do for them, which was content marketing. So I was saying, oh, I'm going to be writing their blog and helping them build a tribe and helping them find new clients. And she was like, oh, but isn't that what you just paid Simon to do for you? And what she was referring to was the fact that I've recently started doing an AdWords campaign. And when I decided to do that, I hired somebody that knew what they were doing with adverts and got him to run it for me. So to her mind, those two things were the same. She then couldn't understand how it was that I was paying somebody to do something that other people were paying me to do. When you have people in your life who are challenged in that way, shall we say, in the sense that they don't understand what you're doing, you can't look to them for validation. You can look to them for encouragement, but you shouldn't rely on them for the support that you need. For one thing, because you will spend half your life trying to explain what you're doing and hitting a brick wall. And for another, because their lack of understanding of what you're doing and where you're going and what you're trying to achieve will come out in quite negative ways. They might not mean it, but they will often be a bit, well, that's not going to work because of this. And it's not that it's not going to work, it's just that they can't understand how it can work because they don't understand it. And that really also ties to asking permission for things. And this is a huge one for female entrepreneurs. How many of us have husbands or partners or wives or parents or even children who we feel like we can't act unless we have their permission. We can't do anything big with our lives without their permission. We kind of have to run it past them first and make sure that they think it's okay. And especially if there's a financial element to any of it. So I know a lot of female entrepreneurs who are just starting out building their businesses, many of them after they've taken time off to have children, and their husbands are used to being the breadwinner. They are used to being the person in charge of the finances. They are used to having a say in everything related to money. So when they've started up their business, they've often found that they've needed money from their husbands to help them get their business going and to support them in their business. And because of that, they actually, even after they've got to the point where they're making money on their own, still find themselves constantly checking with their other half, hubby, wife, whatever, if it's okay for them to do this, especially if it involves spending money. So they won't take a course unless hubby or wife has signed off on it. They won't invest in advertising unless the other half thinks it's going to work. And that's fine if that person that you're looking for permission from understands what you're doing and has a really good idea of what will work and what won't. But if they are, for example, like my mother, and have absolutely no clue, I love her, but she really has no clue, asking them for permission, it's counterproductive, because they will often be quite cautious on your behalf because they don't want to see you make mistakes, they don't want to see you go wrong. And if they can't understand how something can work, they will caution you against it. They will withhold that permission. They will tell you not to do it, and they won't support you in it. Not because they're being unsupportive, but because they're trying to protect you, and they don't have enough of an understanding to comprehend that they've actually made the wrong call there, and what they should be doing is telling you to go for it full throttle, okay? So you need to seek permission from people who are in a position to give an informed opinion, okay? That's so important, which is why having mastermind groups and, you know, surrounding yourself by people who are in the same boat that you're in. It might be a slightly different, you know, business, it might be a slightly different kind of niche, but they're in a similar position and they know what you're going through and they understand the things that you need to make decisions about. Rule number 4, and I love this one, it's so important. It is make your passion your paycheck. And it's a simple concept, but so many people get it wrong. If you're building your own business, if you're starting something from scratch, and if you're pouring your heart and soul and so much time and often so much money and resources into something, you really need to make sure it's something you love. Now there are 2 reasons for this. The main reason is that you will go completely stir crazy if you put all of that into something that you don't absolutely love. When you really love something, when you're working on your passion, it's not really like work because you're loving doing it. Even the difficult bits, even the kind of the tedious bits, you know it's for a greater good. If your business is based on something that you don't love, and by that I don't mean it's something that you hate, I just mean you don't love it, you don't live and breathe it. If it's not something that you wake up in the morning and immediately want to get started doing, you're going to flounder, you're going to fall down really, really quickly. So make sure you are using your passion for your paycheck. Even if whatever it is you love doesn't sound like a real thing, okay? Even if you're sitting there thinking, but I can't make money doing that. That's not something that people pay you to do. That's something I love doing. You will always be able to find a way of turning the thing that you love into a business if you get really creative with it. Just make sure your business is based on your passion. Rule number 5 is to find your niche. It's the one thing that you can spend all day doing and be perfectly happy doing it, because you are going to have to spend all day doing it and be perfectly happy doing it, at least initially. You need to keep niching down. So you'll niche down and you'll think, yes, I found my niche, I'm going to be a writer. And then you think about it for a bit longer and you realise there are millions of different kinds of writers, and that's not niching enough, okay? That's not a niche, that's an industry. So make sure your niche is actually a niche and not an industry or a really big sector masquerading as a niche. Rule number 6 is not to skimp on your planning. That doesn't mean you have to spend hours and hours and hours planning things in immaculate detail. It just means that you need to have a plan. It can take lots of different forms, but certainly where content marketing is concerned, planning is the thing that lets people down more than anything else. They don't plan. They spit blog post after blog post out, but they have no they have no method to it, they have no design, they have no plan, and they kind of sort of get it to work for them, but it's never as powerful as it could have been if they planned it properly. So I like to use that kind of as a metaphor for business as a whole. You can kind of muddle through without a plan, but when you have a plan and when you plan properly, everything will work a lot better and you'll be a lot more successful than you would have been without the plan. In December I get my Leonie Dawson planner and I go through it and I look at the year that's just gone and I plan the year that's to come, and I often write down notes on things to do even further ahead than that, but I always make sure that I spend some time planning. And I haven't actually filled all of this in, okay, so it's nearly April now. And I haven't filled in all of this. I've used the parts that I needed, the parts that were helpful, and I've left the other parts there. I'm sure they'll be very, very helpful to other people, and I'm sure if I did take the time to fill the whole thing in from start to finish, it would be helpful. But this is what I mean when I say you don't have to spend massive amounts of time doing it, you just have to make sure you plan. Rule number 7 is to invest wisely in both yourself and your business. Now this sounds like a bit of a no-brainer, like it's kind of obvious, but I think there is a tendency when you're first starting out in business to want to try everything. You know, you throw everything in the kitchen sink at the problem and hope that something sticks, and in doing so you end up wasting a lot of money on things that really haven't worked, and that if you'd stopped and thought about it a little bit more, you probably realised that they were never going to work. So when I first published my novel, Chasing Asriel, I was doing lots of work on sort of ideal clients and things like that, and I determined that my ideal client for my novel read, amongst other things, Gothic Beauty magazine. So I valiantly purchased advertising space in 4 issues of Gothic Beauty magazine, these exact 4 issues. It cost me, I don't even want to tell you how much it cost me, it's terrifying, but it cost me hundreds and hundreds of pounds, and I did not get a single sale. I did not get one single book sale from those hundreds of pounds worth of advertising in these magazines, and that's not because it's a bad magazine, it's not because my ideal clients aren't reading this magazine, it is just because, for one thing, print marketing for books that aren't already very well known is just never really particularly successful, and somewhere in my head I actually knew that, and I just sort of didn't think about it. But also, the reasons that people read Gothic Beauty magazine have absolutely nothing to do with wanting to read fiction. So they're not used to seeing adverts for fiction books in this. They're used to seeing clothes and jewellery and makeup and things like that. So technically I was right in terms of my target market and my ideal client and my demographics and blah 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 blah, but if I'd actually stopped and thought about it, I would have realised very very quickly that it just wasn't going to work and save myself well, a lot of money. I might have thought that the problem was the magazine rather than the medium, so I might have gone and spent a load more money on print advertising in a different magazine thinking it would have a different effect, and finding that I just wasted a buttload more money. Fortunately, I realised what the problem was, wrong medium, and I switched to online advertising. Other things that I've invested in that I really wish I hadn't, there are some courses that I've done that I actually had kind of niggling doubts about before I paid for them, and I was sort of second guessing myself, thinking should I, shouldn't I don't know whether it's going to be worth it, I'm a bit worried about this aspect of it, I'm not sure it's going to cover exactly what I want. I just need to invest in myself, I need to invest in my business, I need to invest in something, and it's that kind of initial fear, I suppose, that you don't know enough and that you need more knowledge and you need to get knowledge from everywhere, and it makes you kind of impulsively invest in things that aren't really the best fit for you. So some of the courses that I've bought have been absolutely wonderful and really really worth every single penny. Some of them have been okay, but I probably could have found something that was a better fit for me specifically than that particular course, and some of them have just been a total unmitigated waste of an awful lot of money. So your investments might not be advertising, your investments might not be courses, it might be things like your website. I know loads of people who have invested an absolutely massive amount of money in their website at a point in their business when they weren't quite sure of who they were or what they were doing yet, and they've got to a stage and realised they've got a phenomenally good website that looks great, it's got all the bells and whistles, but it doesn't do what they need it to do, or it's targeted at the wrong ideal client. So you don't need everything to be perfect right out of the gate. So in order to invest wisely, I would suggest that you always think, how much do I need right now to get me or my business to the point that it absolutely has to be at in order to function. Rule number 8, and this is the last rule, but it is by no means the least, and that is to practice gratitude. Now, I'm going to be completely honest, this is something that I learned in therapy. So you may or may not know that I have bipolar disorder, so I spend an awful lot of time keeping myself on a nice even keel and making sure that I'm fine. And one of the ways that I do this is I have what is called a gratitude journal. And every day I write in it something that I'm grateful for. Now some days these turn into sort of essay-long rants about the wonderful people in my life, or a dog I met in the park, or the fact that I saw a rainbow, things like that. And sometimes it's just a one-liner that says, I'm not dead. I'm not joking. that is sometimes what I'm grateful for, is the fact that I'm still alive. So when I say to practice gratitude, the way I look at business is that it is a lot like, if you'll bear with me, being bipolar. When you're bipolar, you have big ups, you have big downs, and you have lots of days in between when you're kind of a little up or a little down. And it's really, really easy, especially when you're on the down days, to get stuck in this kind of, oh my god, it's all going wrong. It's all too hard. I'm so tired. I haven't got any time. I'm so stressed. I've got so much to do. It's really, really easy to get overwhelmed. And if you get overwhelmed, the overwhelm just sort of snowballs and very quickly becomes worse. So those little dips can quickly turn into great big dips that leave you kind of incapable of doing anything for days and even weeks. So you really need to kind of keep a handle on that. And similarly, there's the kind of the up days when everything's going absolutely perfectly, and you know, everything's working exactly as you want it to, and you're on top of the world, and then you can get a bit carried away then, and you can think, oh well, I've just got this new client, so I'm going to have loads of new money coming in, and now that I'm getting more clients, I'll have loads more clients, so I can afford to do this, and I can afford to do that, and I can afford to do the other, and you get ahead of yourself a little bit, and you can overcommit, either in terms of time or finances or just energy, the amount of energy that you have to put into something. You can overcommit because you're so excited about where you are and how everything's going that you just kind of get lost in it, you get too caught up in it. Practicing gratitude is really every day just checking in with yourself and where you're at in your business, and it doesn't have to take long. It can be a one line, or it can be an essay, it can be, it doesn't have to be written down either, you can just do it in your head. But try and think of everything in your business that you are grateful for on a daily basis. So the thing that I am grateful for every single day in my business are my clients, because without my clients I would not have a business, and I do not delude myself into thinking that there is any plausible way that I would be here without them. So you can be grateful for your clients, you can be grateful for a particular piece of software that makes your life easier, you can be grateful for a coach that's helping you, you can be grateful for a community that's supporting you, you can be grateful for, you know, a bank loan that came at the exact right time. It really doesn't matter, it's as varied in business as it is in life, but the important thing is to focus on the good and to make sure that you have something that just keeps you tethered a little bit and stops you flying off and getting overexcited about things, or sinking into that overwhelm and getting lost in all of that kind of doom and gloom and oh my god, it's so hard, because it is hard, okay? Running a business is hard, and there are going to be days when you're like that. Not because you're bipolar, I'm not saying business owners are all bipolar, I'm saying there are ups and downs, and you need to manage those ups and downs the same way that I need to manage the ups and downs in my mood, because if you don't keep on top of it, it gets away from you. And I really do think that that's true in business, that it can very easily get away from you, and you can either end up on top of the world or in a really, really deep hole. And when you're in those states, things go very wrong very quickly. So yes, practice gratitude. So that's it from me for this week. I hope you've enjoyed those rules and they are helpful to you. If you have any comments or questions, do please pop them below. Otherwise, like this video, share this video, and don't forget to tune in next week for another fabulous video from me and Plausibly Dexter.